Are you looking for a LiDAR-based Robo Vacuum with more sucking power? Then you're in the right place. Hello, I'm Wanderer001 and this is my review of the Eufy X8 twin turbine technology. Buzzword for really good vacuum suction power. If you're here, you might not know the difference between a LiDAR-based RoboVac versus one that just bumps around and uses what's commonly called a bump sensor with IR lights in the front. What those types of vacuums do is, as they bounce around your home, the IR up front gets close enough to something that says, hey, maybe I should stop, or it bumps into it. With something like this, which is a LiDAR-based system, you have a spinning LiDAR sensor on the top, which will map your house as it's going along. The beauty of this type of system is that, one, you can use it at night, as you can see here, and it maps your home, which is really important. A bump-based RoboVac does not map your home, it just bounces around until the battery dies. This has a LiDAR sensor, so it will map, know exactly where it has been and where it needs to go. It still has a bump sensor for some of those more tricky areas, but it does not rely 100% on the bump sensor. Now let's take a look at the top of the X8 here. The top does have shiny fingerprint magnet plastic material. That's not going to be a downfall because you're really not going to be touching the device. The LiDAR sensor on top is housed in a protective housing right there, so you don't have to worry about it hitting anything as it tries to go under furniture. That's one of the things with robot vacuums that is really good. You can get under places that you normally wouldn't vacuum, like your bed or your nightstands. I will say the Eufy X8 here, at only just shy of 4 inches tall, actually gets under some of my furniture that my other LiDAR-based robot vacuum could not, so that's a plus for the Eufy here. We're going to bring this a little closer to the camera, show you the buttons we're looking at up top. You have a charge icon right there, you have a power, which is start stop, and then you have a spot clean icon right there. This indicates that it is currently connected to Wi-Fi, and because it's connected to Wi-Fi, that does mean that there is a setup process to actually utilize the Eufy X8 here. So let's take a look at what the setup process looks like. This is the setup process for the Eufy X8. Here we can see everything that you get in the box for the actual setup process. I do appreciate the fact that the robot vacuum itself already comes with a filter installed as well as a side brush. So the other ones that you have in the box are actually extras, so you don't need those for the installation process or setup process like you do for other robot vacuums. Step one is actually to, on the front of the bumper guard here, on either side for traveling, they do add little foam protectors so that the bump guard doesn't get disturbed while traveling. Once that's in place, the robot vacuum is actually set. The first step is actually putting in place your docking station and power cord. Now, as I've done with other robot vacuums in the past, I will be putting it under my entertainment center there, which the Eufy X8 here is low profile enough to get under there. One of the things that I do like about the Eufy right here for the docking station, if we flip it over, there actually is a place to wrap the cord around to keep it out of place. So I'll be doing that since it'll be kind of hiding under there. One of the other things with the docking station right here, this is actually a removable instruction panel, but I'm keeping it on because what this is actually a sticky tack or a plastic thing to kind of help keep the docking station in place. You do see it has rubberized feet right there and on the back panel that I removed, but since I'm going to be installing this on carpet, I'm going to leave this in place so that I don't get weird residue on my carpet. So just know, if you're installing this for the first time and are doing this on carpet, keep this one on so you don't have to worry about any weird residue on your carpet. The power station itself also has dual channels for that little hidden cord wrap that I was referring to. So if your power supply is that way versus that way, you have channels that you can pick from. It's little touches like that that let you know what you're getting. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get everything plugged up and get the base station set up underneath that entertainment center over there. And then after that, we are supposed to move the 8X onto the docking station to start powering it.
You will know you correctly connected your base station when you see the little white light on the top. Of course, I missed that. But there is a very loud vocalization, music, and an indicator that it is charging. You can see right there, 3 buttons on the top. They all start blinking blue, and now we have an orange one indicating that it is charging. If you do this and don't have it under furniture, it'd probably be a little easier. You can see my rat's nest of cableage back there. Wi-Fi is blinking because we do need to set that up because that is the next step.
For the setup process, here we have the Eufy Home app. Now, if you have the Eufy Security app, this is a different application just for home devices like the Robot Vacuum. I will say, at the very least, you can use the same username and password that you have for your Eufy Security app in your Eufy Home app. So just know, you have that little bit of leeway between all of the applications. When you first set it up, you have nothing to look at, so it's gonna prompt you right away to add a device. We're gonna select add a device and then select Robot Vacuum because, well, that's what we have. Now we have choices for which Robot Vacuum we have. Right here, I have the RoboVac X8, we're gonna select that. We will need to turn on our phone's Bluetooth, so if you don't have your Bluetooth on, do make sure that you do that, and we're just gonna let that go. Here we go. It has found my particular Robot Vacuum. I'm going to select the plus sign right there, and now it's going to ask us to log into our Wi-Fi network. And I'm going to quickly do this off camera, and then if you plan to have other Eufy products, you can select save the password so that when you're setting up future products, you don't have to go through the typing in. So we're gonna say next, and now it is going to send the Wi-Fi signal to the Robot Vacuum, connecting it to my home network. And right up there, there is a percentage sign, which if I move like that is a little easier to see. And then it has been successfully added. We can personalize the device by giving it a name. And there we go. My Robot Vacuum has a name. We select Save Name. And now this screen lets you know that you are now the owner of the device and you can share it with other people if you want. We're just gonna select OK for now. And then here we go. Here's my home, Wanderer 001. Since it's the first time that we've started the app with this Robot Vacuum, there's some tips and tricks. We have Charlemagne charging and the play button right there. But that would complete the installation and setup process for the Eufy X8. So not bad at all for setup. Realistically, if you've had a Robot Vacuum before, you've kind of got an idea of what you're doing. And with the X8 here, it's not bad. I will mention, if this is your first LiDAR-based RoboVac, keep in mind that things that hang low off your bed or table or chairs, such as sheets, might confuse the LiDAR system into thinking that it's something that it can't push through. Again, it's a limitation of the LiDAR, but it's only one of the small downfalls of a system like this. Your RoboVac, after its initial charge of between 3 to 4 hours, what Eufy states as a maximum runtime of 180 minutes, or in my case, I tested it at maximum suction of 1 hour. Now, that's partially due to the 5,200 milliamp lithium ion battery that's in this. So again, if you run it completely down, you will need to charge it again for that 4 hours. However, chances are, unless you have a very large home, you're not really gonna run into that. And even if you do run into the battery dying in the middle of your cleaning session, the Eufy has a built-in mode which will go back and pick up where it left off because it's mapping your house. So let's take a walk around the RoboVac here. On the front, as I mentioned before, you do have a bump sensor, which kind of has this cool little carbon fiber look to the front. There is a small lip down here with a rubber coating across the bump sensor. You can see there aren't actually many scratches on this, so it doesn't really get that close to anything that it would hit. Now, this here is an IR sensor. However, that's mostly to help the Robot Vacuum make its way back to the home base station. And it's one of the weird things that it does that I'm not particularly sure I care about. My other LiDAR-based RoboVac, I could put it down in front of the charging station, press return home, and it would just go home. The X8 here has to position itself before it will actually just go straight. So it will wander around a little bit to figure out where it is and then go to its charging station. A little oddity, but something to be aware of. Over here on the side, you have another IR sensor. They call it the IR wall sensor. You can see there is a little cutout for that so that the bump guard doesn't hurt it. I will admit the X8 does get a little closer to some things that I would care for a Robot Vacuum to get close to. But again, on this side especially, you don't see any real scratch marks or scuff marks, so it's doing a really good job of keeping its distance. Continuing to the side, we have one of our twin turbine outputs, and if I swing it over to the other side here, we've got another one. Now, in the back, this is where our actual dustbin is. And for me, this is actually my preferred location for a dustbin, and that's primarily because I keep my Robot Vacuums under furniture. So in my other LiDAR-based Robot Vacuum, I had to open up the top, which was difficult to do when it was under furniture. With this, You don't have to worry about that.
Dust collector removed.
And did I mention that it talks to you? Let's take a look at the dustbin momentarily. I like the fact that one, Eufy provides you with a tool. So you have your cleaning and cutting tool right here, which you will be using. But I like the fact that it's attached to the dustbin because, well, you're gonna need that cleaning tool when you take the dustbin out. The dustbin, as you can see stated right there, ultra pack dust compression. That is because you have those twin turbine technology blowing dust in here and packing it in really tight. And I will admit, it does pack it in rather tight. To open, you simply push down on the lever here. You see those two things disappear and it opens up. And you can see this has been well used because there's dust in there and other things. You have a dust filter right here. Eufy does provide you with a secondary dust filter. It does get a little grimy in that, depending on the amount of dust or debris that you're picking up, it tends to stick to the filter up here. I'm not sure why, but it's not a deal breaker. It's just a data point for you to know. And if we come around to the side here, you've got a nice giant opening for all of that debris to go into. And one other thing, right down there, because it sits so close to the floor, you actually have a little wheel that, while it's riding,
Collector inserted.
allows it to get down low. The size of the dustbin compared to some of the other robot vacuums that I've had is rather large. It is 600 milliliters. Now, because even though this is a really smart robot, one of the wish list things that I've always kind of wanted is, hey, tell me how much is in here, tell me it's full so that I can come and empty it. Sadly, they don't have that option, but that does not mean that it is bad. It just, again, is something that no other robot vacuum is doing either. It's just a wish list thing that I would like. And right back there, you can see the giant channel for your debris to come through, as well as both your twin turbines over there. And we'll put this back in one more time.
Dust collector inserted.
And I will say, you can actually change the volume of that voice, so it doesn't have to always be that loud. It doesn't even have to be that voice. There's a few choices that you have for it. Now let's take our Eufy X8 here and flip it over. Now I will state that I have not cleaned this since the last few runs that I've done because I wanted you to see exactly what this looked like under here. You have these two independent suspension wheels right there, so that helps it stay level on the floor and stay really close to the floor. You've got your big bristle brush right here, and you'll notice that there's a little rubber flap right here, and if we bring that in just a little closer, you can see what I'm talking about. Little rubber flap helps to direct stuff right in here. If you ever need to replace or clean, simply push on your two purple tags right here, and that will flop right out. And like I said, I have not cleaned this since the last few usage because I wanted you to see kind of how tangled it could get if you have a long-haired animal living with you. I will say, and if I take this out and bring it a little closer to the camera, the purple sections here, you'll notice where the hair is actually wrapping around. And this is one of the things that I like that Eufy did, in that instead of a singular rubber flapper right here, they break it up into sections so that the hair doesn't get wrapped around the whole rubber part and break it. They have these places for the hair to naturally collect. You will have to come through and cut it free with the tool, but you're gonna get longer life out of your cleaning head here because of just that small little consideration. And then you do have your normal bristles there. To reinstall, you simply take one side, stick it in there, and then the other side slides right in. One side does stay still, while the other is a free floating because this is where the actual spinning occurs. When you're done, simply take your protective guard, place back over, and click into place. Simple as that. Now, we're gonna bring the Eufy a little closer and zoom in so that you can see over here 4 sensors. So one on each side and then 2 up front. Those are your anti-drop sensors. And I will admit, the X8 here performs really good in that, well, I have tested several different types of robot vacuums, and only one other one has been able to not get caught up on my stairs when I'm testing the anti-drop, as you can see here. Coming back, you have your swivel ball head right here. Helps the X8 move around more freely. You have your 2 charging connecting points right there, and then a battery hidden under here, which you shouldn't need to replace anytime soon. You also have a single sweeper arm that's located on the right side when the robot is actually facing correctly down. This is something that you might not realize if you've never had a robot vacuum before. One, this cutout here to make the actual sweeper arm more usable, but also if we come in, and it might be a little tricky to see, but right there on the sweeper arm, that actually is a little bristle brush that as this spins around is cleaning this channel so that debris does not get stuck here. If you've never had a robot vacuum before, you don't realize that dust collects under this. And because this particular arm is screwed into place, the fact that they have that extra thing there to make it so you don't have to take this off frequently to clean is that little touch of extra that you might not realize you're getting with the X8. One other thing I can say with the sensors on the bottom of this is that the X8, if you've had other robot vacuums that use magnetic boundary strips, the X8 does actually respect your boundary strips that are already in place. So if you don't want to have to muck around in the application setting up those virtual boundaries and you already have those magnetic strips in place, the X8 will stay away from those areas as marked off previously. Or let's see if it'll go in there. Oh, the magnet strip is keeping it at bay. All right. So we've talked about the general construction of the X8 and all of the cool little things that the hardware does. But you're getting this because it's a robot vacuum. So obviously you want to see it out there doing what it does best, which is cleaning. So we'll take this as a jumping off point to check out its maiden voyage. Now, I didn't get any cats in this particular test video, but I will say my cats, they're kind of used to these robot vacuums now. When it's in its lowest cleaning mode, they don't really care about it. They leave it alone. But when you crank up those twin turbines in there, they take notice and they skedaddle. However, I will say, since I've had this for the last 3 months cleaning my house, they have gotten used to it. They still don't like the twin turbo, but they tolerate it. So let's take a look at the actual maiden voyage of the X8. You tell it to go out and start mapping. So you may have heard that that said start cleaning. So it's gonna start on its cycle out. We'll get an idea a little bit more here as it's creating its map. So similarly to my other one, it's gonna kind of scoot all the corners first to figure out where things are. Oh, it's coming right this way, okay? We're gonna get out of its way. All right, that was a direct bump because the cat scratching pole there is outside the LiDAR's field of view. LiDAR is only going to be good at a specific height. Anything that happens to be below that will not get picked up, which is also why it's recommended that you pick up any cables or, in my case, cat toys. So we'll see if that actually flings some stuff around. I kind of left the place as messy as possible between my last vacuuming, just to see how this does. And once we get into the kitchen, I'll be able to tell if it actually kind of like flings things around a little more. Actually gonna see how it does around these chairs. As it's mapping for the first time. See how close it gets without actually bumping. Yeah, it's giving a larger berth to that large leg because it can kind of see that. There we go, right over there. So it's a little too big to get between my particular chair legs, but it does look like it gets fairly close. Made its way into the kitchen. Little clumsy because it thinks it can make it under there, but the LiDAR sensor actually is preventing it from moving underneath. So it's just going to kind of bump along as it figures things out and kind of cover up the sun there so my auto thing goes. There we go. So around here, it is low enough to get under the cabinetry, since the LiDAR sensor is positioned in the center. And there you might have seen it kind of flick forward some debris that was here. Alright. There you can see. If you have a cat that's already used to them, they'll just kind of give them a wide berth. But there you go. It's going to finish mapping things out, because this is the section of my house with the horrible wallpaper that it did not get originally. No issues with the transition. And here you can see it's making straight lines as it should. I'll be very curious to see what it does after the initial mapping phase, because it's going straight up and down this way for this little segment of the living room. However, over here, it went this way. All right, this should be the end of its initial mapping phase. Everything should be done, so it should be thinking. All right, so that's it returning to the charger. I may have turned the volume down on the voice controls a little too low, because I did not hear an audio cue saying that it was going back to the charging station. All right, let's see how well this does here. Can it do it on the first shot? It did say charging. So first shot. All right, so this is the container after its initial mapping and cleaning. It was not on turbo mode, so whatever's in here is actually picked up on the lowest setting. So let's see how it did. Right there, that's a lot of cat hair right there. And like I said, this was the lowest setting. That dust pile is actually fairly compact compared to other ones, which is supposed to be the other key feature of the X8, is the twin turbo that kind of smushes everything together. So again, this was about a week's worth of cat hair, lowest setting. As you saw, it did really well for its first time going out. And what I like about the X8 is its ability to do multi-levels of your home. You don't need more than one robot. You can have a single robot that takes care of your entire house. But in order to do that, you have to use the Eufy Home app, which is different than the Eufy Security app or the Eufy Pet app. So they do segregate their apps. However, in some cases, I actually do appreciate that a little more, so that it doesn't bog down the app with unnecessary things from other programs. Let's take a look at the Eufy Home app for the X8 to see all of the things that you can use it to do. This is the Eufy Home app as it pertains to the Eufy X8 RoboVac. Here we can see this is the main page when you first log into the Eufy Home app, which is different than the Eufy Security app or the Eufy Pet app. I kind of like the fact that they separate these because it helps to keep the application itself really clean when compared to other apps. When you first log in, you have your one, in my case, RoboVac right there, the X8. You have the ability to add more stuff by clicking the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner there. So you can vacuum, bulbs, smart plugs, smart switches. You also have a little help icon right there. Selecting that will allow you to pick which one you want to ask questions about. And then they have chat, call us, or feedback, all from this area right here. We're gonna select back because you're interested in the actual RoboVac. So if we select RoboVac, you have a play button, or we just tap on it, and it brings us into the RoboVac screen itself. What you'll notice right here is the last map that the RoboVac actually used. The RoboVac does allow for multiple levels in your home, so it's always going to be the last one. You have a plus and minus sign over here on the right, so you can zoom in and zoom out, or you can also pinch to zoom in and out. You also have this icon right here. This actually rotates the map around. So for me, when it created this map, this is the way it had it oriented. Well, for me and the way my brain works and my home, I generally look at this as, this is how my layout is. This is my front door, hallway coming in, living room area, dining room, and kitchen. So I liked that better. So I swapped the map around, and this is how it looks. Up here you have the square footage when the RoboVac is going around, minutes run, and right there is your battery indicator. It does not show you a percent there. I kind of wish it did, but it does not. Right there, that little green icon is your charging station location. And if I zoom in a little bit right here, that red line is actually a no-go zone that I set up. Now, to do any of that, you select Edit Map. So I can reset the map, meaning start over. I can manage my maps, which is how you have multiple levels. So in this case, this is my current map, and this is my upstairs map. And I can use this map or edit this map. But in order to do this, you have to toggle on the multi-level managing. Coming back to our edit map, you have your edit room. So in my case, these are predefined rooms that were created and shaded different colors. If I select this room, I can rename it, or I can divide it, or if I select two rooms, I can merge them together to get rid of this differentiation. So if I select this one room and then select divide, you have a handle here, which you kind of plunk down where you want to divide the room. I will say you don't actually need to have it touch a corner. You can kind of drop that where you want. I'm gonna say no. So I like the room divider. It is a little less sensitive than some other RoboVacs that I've tried in the past. And coming back one more time, we have our no-go zones. And here you go. This is your robot's radius right there. So you can't place a no-go zone there, but you can select no-go or virtual boundary. So these two are virtual boundaries. A no-go zone is a square box that you can drop somewhere. A virtual boundary is merely a line that you can place across a specific area. And selecting either of them, you can adjust the size, you can rotate it around like that, or you can select the X to get rid of it. Anytime you make a change, you can always save. So that's all under our edit map area. And that's all just on this main screen, which falls under our auto. Now, auto, you also have access to suction level, pure, which is the quietest form. You'll be able to hear TV and have the robot vacuum going. Power, which is pretty good power. You will notice it running around. Turbo mode, you're really gonna hear it. And then max mode, forget about it. It is going to sound like a jet fighter taking off, which is partially why you got this. Boost IQ is so that when the robot vacuum transfers from carpet to wood floor, it will change the suction level as needed. We have our play right there, which actually sends the robot vacuum out to do its thing. And then we have recharge, which will, no matter where it is on the map, send it back to the charging station. Now, as the robot vacuum does make its way through the map, you will see a line indicating the pathway that it has taken and also lets you know where it has actively gone. Next tab, we have room right here, which will allow us to specify particular rooms that we want it to do. So if you didn't have any no-go zones or boundaries set up, you can go, I want my hallway, my living room, and my dining room, and then send it out on its way to do its thing. You will notice that unlike the auto page, we have a new icon down here in the lower right, and this is a number. So right now we have 1 or 2. Selecting 2 means that the robot vacuum will do a complete circuit twice in each of these locations. This is how I tested the actual battery length because my rooms were too small, so I sent it out and did it twice. My one problem with the room selector is that it had a problem and it would go into my kitchen. That's why I put up these virtual boundaries. Next, we have our zone. Now, again, we have the number icon, which will allow us to go anywhere from 1 to 3, so it will go 3 times. Now, with the zone, we have this other icon, we select, and then we drop in. This is the zone that the robot will go to and then work within. Think of it almost as, I want this area clean, nothing else. So in my case, this dark shadow is actually a litter box that I have. So I really want all this area around the litter box done. And then I want it done 3 times just to make sure that everything is clean. I then hit go and it goes to this location, and within that box will vacuum 3 times. Next we have our spot. Now again, we have the ability to do 1 to 3 times, and then the spot will drop a pin in the location that you want cleaned. Now, unlike other spot cleaners which will spiral around, this one actually kind of has a box, very similar to our zone, but instead of selecting your zone, you just go here. It creates that box, and then within that box, it will vacuum in a set pattern. So no spiraling. Now you can only select one spot. However, with zone, you can have multiple zones for it to go and take care of. And then you see with each of those zones, it's letting you know the actual size right there. It's a 10-foot zone. We're gonna get rid of these because we don't want them popping up. And like I said, spot is a single cleaning. We're gonna come back to auto because that's generally where you're gonna spend the most of your time. But for the settings for this, we come up to the sprocket icon in the upper right-hand corner. Up at the top, it'll show you an image of your particular vacuum and the name, as well as the Wi-Fi information. Right here, we have Manage Map. Selecting that will show you just what I showed you before, the 2 maps that I have. You can have up to 3 maps, so 3 floors. You have your scheduling. If you wanted to create a schedule, I don't have one, but I can say add a schedule. And then for this, you could select suction level, mode. Mode is always going to be auto clean because that's where it's gonna just go out and do its thing. You select time, and then what days you want it to do that on. And then hit save in the upper right-hand corner. And do I want to save changes? I say no, because I didn't make any changes, but I wanna go back. So that is our schedule. Tap and go, kind of very similar. Tap somewhere, go here. There's a lot of redundancy in the app, so there's several locations that you can go to do things. Here we have manual controls. This is kind of cool if you want to hand the robot off to a kid, or if you don't want to spot clean and have it go in a set zone, you can drive it around yourself using the controls. Notice it's not super finite because you can go forward and kind of left and right. There's no backup in this. Here you have spot clean, but again, it's not the spiral spot clean. It is that grid spot clean. And then you can send it back to recharge and always start. Now you do need to start the robot so that it comes off of the charging station and goes kind of out into the room itself so that you can start manually controlling it. Here you've got your cleaning history. It keeps track of all the times you've run it, as well as, if we bring it up, it shows you a map with the room names and those white lines, as I said before, that indicate where it actively was cleaning. And here we go, this is the living area. The one thing with the maps, you'll notice it's not the orientation that I prefer, but it's in there. It shows you the square footage as well as the cleaning duration. Share setting, if we come in here, you can share your robot, but whoever you share it with will have to have their own Eufy home account. Auto return cleaning, I have that turned on, so what it does is if you have a larger home or you've sent it out to clean a specific room several times, the battery might run out. This will allow the robot to come back to its charging station, charge up, and then go out and finish the job. I kind of like that, so it's a nice feature that it's there. You've got your do not disturb mode, which will allow you to turn it on and say, hey, do not run anything or send the robot vacuum out between this time period. You can set that up. Here we've got our voice settings. You have a volume control up here at the top, which is very important because the robot can be kind of loud depending on the voice that you have. For English, you have English male, female, and then a few other choices. I stuck with what I know. Here we've got unit setting. So you've got square footage or meters. Find my robot. Selecting this, you hit start. The robot will actually make a noise letting you know exactly where it is. And the volume of the Find My Robot is separate from the actual voice volume. So keep that in mind. Accessory services. This lets you know how much time you have left for your stuff. So in the case of the brushes, you'll have to purchase a new one. Same with the filter, you can clean it off. Sensor, this is one of the first times that I've actually seen a sensor reminder letting you know, hey, all those anti-collision, anti-drop sensors, you need to kind of keep up with that. And here you may also need battery, filters, and then tape. Selecting any of these will actually walk you through a tutorial on how to clean, or in this case, purchase and reset the timer here. So I like that that's really just built into the app, makes it so much easier. And you have help and feedback. So just like you saw before, help and feedback, and then firmware updates. Now the firmware updates means that the robot will continuously become smarter as time goes on, or if there's a problem, they'll be able to correct that problem in the future. Activity logs, well, that's kind of sending information to Eufy. You can choose to do that or not. I selected no. And then you can remove the device if you so chose. If we come back to our main page here, over here, these 3 dots, there's actually extra information. And I will run through this very quickly because like I said, it's all about redundancy with this app. Here you've got your account, I have my name, you have messages. In my case, it will tell me, hey, the robot didn't make it back to the charging station because when you're using it on the second floor, it can't make it back to the charging station on the first floor. You have your help and feedback, and you have your Eufy Care right there. So how to actively take care of your device. You have your device sharing, just like you did before. Smart integration. If you have one of these smart assistants, you can set it up so that you can tell your voice assistant to have your robot go out and clean. You have your widget settings. So the widgets are actually this thing here. This is a widget. So by default, when you add your robot, you'll have a widget. If you have multiple devices, you will have multiple widgets that you need to set up. You also have the homepage layout, which is those widgets. How do you want them to lay out in a grid? You have dark mode, which is currently turned on. Language, obviously, self-explanatory. Time zone, select your time zone. Referral, if you are part of Eufy's referral system. Visit Eufy, so that will take you to the website, and about Eufy Home, and that will give you information about the Eufy app itself. And that has been a complete look at the Eufy Home app for the Eufy X8 RoboVac. So there you saw all the interesting things that you can use the application for the X8, including 1, designating specific rooms, 2, setting up the actual twin turbo to be twin turbo, which is what you're primarily getting this for. I know it sounds like I'm gushing over the X8. There are some things about it that I did not particularly care for. One being the slightly odd mapping that it does. It does seem to do a perimeter first and then go up and down in a straight line, as you would expect from something like this. However, to get from room to room, it seems to oddly direct itself. And as I said before, it kind of does not yet still understand to avoid my kitchen. I don't know why, but it doesn't. So that's a little odd. The side brush, which is now on this side, does move a little quickly when spinning. I do like the fact that it has the far reach, but sometimes it does knock things a little too far out of range for the Eufy to pick up, and you may have to send out the robot vacuum again. One other thing to consider with a LiDAR base, and the fact that this is just mainly for making it back to the base station, is that if you've got animal leavings other than hair on your carpet, this is not going to be able to pick it up. Likewise, if you have children's toys or cat toys, in my case, the Eufy, because of those really strong independent suspension wheels, will just roll right over it. And it has done that several times. It doesn't injure most of the toys because they're squishy, but again, data point for you to consider. One other thing is if you don't pick up your cables, this will eat them. I almost had that happen. So those are a few of the downsides to the X8 that I can think of, except for the last one. That is price. This is going to be a rather expensive unit, especially if you're looking at comparing this to other options out there, including some other LiDAR-based RoboVacs. But what I want you to keep in mind with that price tag is that you get multi-floor capability. You can designate individual rooms to clean. You have virtual no-go areas and off-limit boundaries, and the fact that if you already have pre-existing magnetic boundaries, this will respect all of that. It does not do edge cleaning, but I have found myself in the use of robot vacuums not really using edge cleaning all that much. But those features that I mentioned are what you're paying for with something like this. And I'll leave you with one last bit of information, because this is something you probably didn't think about. If you lose power, what happens to the Eufy? Well, I've had other robot vacuums that start wandering the house. The X8, it will notify you that power has been lost, but it will stay put on its cradle until power is returned. Which, if you've never had a robot vacuum wandering around at 3 o'clock in the morning banging into things or getting into trouble, you don't know how good of a feature that actually is. If you can get past the price of the X8, it has been one of the best robot vacuums that I have had to date, even with those few quirks and shortcomings that I mentioned. With that being said, I have been Wanderer 001. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the area below. And as always, thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, consider giving it a like, as that will help other people find the video as well. If you like what I'm doing here, you can always help fuel the next review by buying me a coffee, link in the description below. Last but not least, if you want to be notified when I upload a new video, you know what to do.